So how do you create a brand that truly represents who you are and the products you sell, as well as building a business that you can scale online? That is what this podcast will help you do. My name is Henry Kaminski Jr., and welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast.
Let me just make this statement loud and clear. Jersey's here, Jersey's here.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another Brand Doctor Podcast episode. Today, I have an amazing guest on the show. I could not wait to have this conversation. This man is a master when it comes to scaling up your business. Without further ado, I want to introduce my man, Nick Bradley, to the show. What is shaking, my man?
Hey, Henry. It is awesome to be here, man. What a lovely intro.
Oh, thank you. We try to keep it fresh. So real quick, for those folks that don't know who Nick Bradley is, let's get the couple minute backstory so we have an understanding of your journey.
Yeah, sure. Listen, I mean, I'll give you the short version because there's a few other things. If I went back too far, mate, you'd be bored stupid because I could talk about living in Australia, then living in the UK. Now, moving back to the US and then the UK again. But the long story is this. I spent 10 years working in private equity. I was the guy that was brought into businesses when they weren't performing particularly well. And I was the guy that would go in there and make the changes, sometimes the hard, tough decisions, and get the business growing again. And over the last decade, I've been involved in 22 businesses that have sold for just under $5.3 billion. And some pretty big exits. The last one was just over $2 billion in 2017. So not that long ago.
Wow. That is freaking awesome. So you know a thing or two about scaling up and exiting and really taking your business to the next level. I cannot wait to get into this.
I certainly do, man. But you're going to have to control me because I could go anywhere with this. I get super excited about business, helping entrepreneurs create value, get to where they want to be in life. So that's my big mission, and that's what I love to do.
Oh, I cannot wait to get in right after this quick little message. If you're a coach or consultant who wants to start leveraging your personal brand to attract the right clients online, check out my Brand Yourself 5-day challenge to help you get the clarity and focus you need to create a brand that truly represents you. Visit www.uniquedesigns with a Z at the end, not an S, .net/challenge. All right, so let's dive in, Nick. Where do we start when it comes to taking your business to, let's say, 6 to 7 figures?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing about this, right, and I spent, as I said, the 10 years in private equity. I want to draw back into that because what you often find in private equity, just to explain it to people, it's where you've got private individuals, sometimes companies putting significant money into businesses that are not leveraged, not optimized, not performing as well as they could be, or they have massive growth potential. So the return that those private investors can get is significant. So the intangibles, the things that sit underneath that, and some very specific things, can be measured under 6 categories. We call it the 6 peaks of value creation. And it literally is, after 10 years of doing this stuff, what are the characteristics that really make a difference to businesses that have the potential to grow, scale to, you said 6, 7 figures, but actually could sell for 8 to 9 figures within a 3 to 5 year period.
Wow. All right. So where do we get started? I mean, we're looking at let's create this scenario, right? We're looking at somebody who's cracked the 7-figure mark. Cracked the 6-figure mark. Now they have this momentum behind them. And they're trying to get to that 7-figure mark profitably. It costs me $998,000 to make $1 million.
Yeah, definitely not that. That's not what we call value creation. Value creation is definitely where you're making money and cash and profit on the way.
Right.
All right. Well, let's start with that. So what normally happens is this: someone creates a 6-figure business, and that, there's hustle, there's energy, there's a clear understanding of a problem in the market and a solution that can solve that problem. What normally happens, though, is people get stuck on that journey to 7 figures. And the reason for that, and this is kind of one of the definitions of scale up, is that you go from this kind of period where it's relatively chaotic, but lots of fun at startup. But scale up is all about the ability to build teams, to work with others, and also to work with process. So what happens a lot of the time is as the entrepreneur, the creative entrepreneur starts to realize that it's not just them anymore, they've got to have other people around them, they can sometimes struggle with what needs to happen next in order to break through that plateau and drive growth again. And quite often that 7-figure mark, it's an interesting one. Once you get into the 7 figures, actually getting up to 8 figures is significantly easier, I find, than what it was initially to try and get to that 7-figure mark.
Now I've heard that and I've never, I'll be honest, I've never hit 8 figures in my business. I mean, we've hit multiple 7 figures over the past 14 years on different occasions. It usually takes, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 3 years, for me to actually crack that 7-figure mark. But I could tell you, and this sounds cliche, but what got me to 6 figures definitely did not get me to 7. And I wanted to hear from you, like sort of a personal experience of how you've gone through that.
Yeah. And what it comes down to is this, and I'll kind of get into the kind of 6 characteristics. I think people want to know how they can start to think about their business and how they can measure this stuff, is that a lot of it comes down to the identity of the entrepreneur. So what I mean by that is that the type of leader that you need to be to take a business into sort of high 7, 8 figures is a different type of leader than you need to start. And that doesn't mean that you fundamentally have to change your beliefs, your values, or any of those things. It's just that the categories of where you put focus, where you think about your resources to drive that growth change. And the best way to simplify that for people, Henry, is to say that, you've got to have your business running like a machine. It's got to have high levels of focus and precision. And once it gets to that level, everything starts to work with more predictability, which is actually one of the characteristics. So if I go through them, this one might start to make more sense. So all the businesses that I've worked with that have the ability to create significant value, what I call outstanding businesses, first and foremost, they start off with a really clear purpose. They know where they're going. They know why it matters, and they have a plan behind them to get there. Now, I appreciate people listening to this thinking, Nick, that sounds so simple. But you'd be surprised in that story I said before where, you have an idea, you start a business and then you get stuck, you get plateaued. Quite often, the entrepreneur gets clouded with everything. They forget why they started the business. They see all this complexity, and actually that clear direction, that clear focus, that goes away. And then all of a sudden, everyone who's working with that person starts to lose focus as well. And that's when you start to get to that plateau.
Okay. So how do we prevent that? Getting that focus and clarity, is there specific questions that we could ask ourselves to sort of narrow that down and drill down a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I tend to sort of go out a bit. I say go up 30,000 feet, because what normally happens is when you're in that point of overwhelm or plateau, you constrict. So you start to see the problems at a very acute level. And actually the way to solve that is to jump up a bit and actually see things in a further distance away. So one of the first questions I say to people is, what's the 5-year vision, even up to maybe a 10-year vision that you have for not just your business, but your life? So what are you trying to create here? Are you trying to create an empire? Are you going to have multiple businesses one day that can create not only wealth for you, but bigger impact societally wise or across the world, whatever it ends up being? Are you clear on that? Because that's the juice that actually gets people to take the action to do stuff. And quite often, just asking that one question, what's the next 5 years look like? Are you on a pathway to exit? Is that what you want to achieve? That starts to get the cogs moving again and the emotion focused again on kind of why they started the business in the first place.
What clouds people the most in your experience? Like, people come out of the gate, guns blazing, ready to take over the world. And then you and I both see it. They start to get a little momentum, and then things get real blurry for them and they start to lose their focus. Is it shiny object syndrome? Is it just being pelted with different messages, 86,000 messages a day? Like, what is it?
It comes back to when you're scaling a business, there's more levers to pull. So, you hear the classic story of the entrepreneur where it's, it might be him or her in a garage with one other person and they can take over the world. And actually, when you think about that, there's a lot of uncertainty there, but there's a lot of simplicity. But when you start to scale a business, you've got customers already. So you've got to first and foremost work out how you satisfy them. You've got the external perspective of what's going on in the market. Now, if you think about what's happening with technology and disruption, things are changing more quickly now than they ever have. So you might be solving a problem for the clients that you thought you had, but then again, they might be changing and evolving. Case in point, what we've all just gone through with the pandemic. So you've got this ability to have to be looking externally at what's going on in the market. You've got the internal piece because you've now got a team. I often say that the difference between startup to scale up is you're starting to get a team of 12 to 15 people or more. And as soon as you have that many people in a business, it's impossible for you, the entrepreneur, to manage everybody. You have to bring in management. So then you've got to deal with the people piece. And a lot of entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders say managing people, getting them, focused and on fire is one of the toughest challenges. So the simple answer to your question, Henry, is there's just a lot more going on. And the entrepreneurs that I work with that you would have seen as well, they're just not prepared for this. They haven't thought about it, and then suddenly it hits them, and that's when they can start to get overwhelmed, stressed, burnt out.
I see. Okay. Continue to take us down the 6 peaks.
Yeah, so that's the big one. That's one where I've actually gone into businesses and just fixed that one thing and start to see growth, start to accelerate again from that. But the second one is profit, and that's the ability not just to generate profits. Now, most of the companies that we work with, the businesses we work with, are investor-backed or have the ambition to be investor-backed, and they want to sell for 8 to 9 figures. So the context is that's generally where we play. And profitability is one of the levers that private equity looks at in terms of value creation, but also an exit. So what I say, if you're an early stage business and non-profitable, that's fine, but make sure you can understand through that journey over the next few years when profit comes into play. So that's the first part. The second part of profit is making sure that you have a cash runway and good visibility of cash flow in your business, because 2 reasons for that. First and foremost, if you've got cash, when opportunities or challenges present themselves, you can invest. And there's some great examples of businesses that I'm sure you and I have seen over this last few months that have invested in the wake of what could be seeing absolute chaos. And the other thing about having cash means that you don't get yourself too much into what I call a scarcity mindset. If you're always worried about how you're going to pay the bills, you're not going to be in a resourceful enough state to be able to think about the things that you could do to grow the business over the medium and longer term.
Okay, I'm going to stop there for a second because I think there's a lot of folks that get into that scarcity mindset pretty quickly due to lack of runway. Is there anything that you do personally that has helped you build your runway? Like, for example, for me, I use a 70-10-10-10 split. So every dollar that comes through my revenue stream, right, gets split 30%. I put 10% into investments. I put 10% into marketing. I put 10% into just a rainy day fund, right? Is there anything that you do personally similar that helps people build that runway?
Yeah, I mean, I follow some of the principles from people like T. Harv Eker and things like that around how you split things into different wallets, as they call it. And Mike Michalowicz has talked about this in his book Profit First as well. But I have a very simple principle, which is 50%, and I break it down a little bit more precisely, but 50% of any money that we make in the business, any profit that we make in the business, is invested back into the business, and then 50% is then shared by the various shareholders in the business. So that's a principle I've done all the way through. And then we break it down into different categories, but we're not as precise on the categories. It depends on what stage the business is at. So a business which has, is already doing really, really well, we're not necessarily putting the same percentages back into marketing as we would at sort of startup and scale up. We're still always putting money into marketing, but we might be investing more in more strategic scale. So one of the things we do a lot of is buying and selling businesses. We like to do acquisitions to then add on to the various businesses that we have, because it's one of the quickest ways to create value and create scale. So some of that 50% will be invested what I call more strategically than operationally. But the key point I want to make to everyone is, if you're not paying yourself, if you're not putting money back into the business, if it's all hand to mouth, then you have to look at your business again under this lens, under this peak, and evaluate, how you can make change. Otherwise, you're not going to be sustainable.
Beautiful. Okay. Just wanted to stop there for a second.
It's one of those ones that sounds simplistic, but as you ask the questions, Henry, there's more to unpack there. But that's why it's such an important one of these 6 peaks.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's discipline.
It is. And,
having that discipline.
There's a lot of, I love the saying that discipline equals freedom. And it's true. You can't live beyond your means, but the whole point is, after a while, when you invest properly And I'll say kind of one other piece of advice that I've been giving people, particularly over the last 6 months, is where you have access to cheap capital. That could be in the UK, we have bounce back loans. The government's been doing lots of different schemes to be able to help businesses get back on track. Where you can get money, borrow money at low, what I call low cost of capital, low interest rates, you should definitely look at that. And a lot of business owners go, oh yeah, but that's debt. That's bad. Debt is bad. Having debt that you can't pay back is bad, but actually having cost of capital at a low rate that you back yourself to invest to drive greater return is actually a very, very smart way of looking at things. So I just want to make that point. Sometimes people get that mindset that they shouldn't be, looking at those sort of sources in the way that I've described.
Great point. Okay, continue on the 6 peaks of value.
Yes. So the third one is proposition. And there's 2 parts to this, really. There is, first and foremost, as I said beforehand, if you start a business, first and foremost, you understand the type of person that you want to help, and you understand their problem intimately, and you have a solution that you feel, congruently with certainty is going to solve that problem. So I often say it's important to mean a lot to someone than a little to everyone. And that's been really, really crisp with who you're targeting and why that's going to then drive your business. So that's the first part. Off the back of proposition is also having what I call a product ecosystem that allows you to help that client, that customer, in a very intentional way on a number of levels. So if you can put those 2 pieces together and you are constantly looking externally at how your clients' needs are changing, so you always have that external perspective, not an internal perspective, that's one of the ones that as a private equity guy, once that's working and you can prove it's working, that's where a lot of the value in a business sits.
So what's the ecosystem for Scale Up Your Business, your brand?
So the big one I've got is the podcast is the starting point. So I have Scale Up Your Business, the podcast, which has been fantastic for me. It's been going for 18 months, 130 episodes in. Had a really awesome guy called Mr. Henry Kaminski come on at some point. But that's been ranked number 1 in the UK business charts, number 17 in the US. And we're now, I think we're about 250,000 downloads since we started.
Wow, that's
which
awesome.
Has been amazing.
Beautiful.
But that's great, right? We can talk about that, but let's understand where that works into your question. That's the start of my ecosystem, right? That's the start. So I call that it's my free gift. It genuinely is a free gift. If you go and listen to all of those different episodes, anything you want to know about starting and scaling a business in any way, shape, or form is covered there. How to raise investment, how to think about marketing with more certainty, how to build a sales process, everything. And I put it out there. And what happens is people then can learn more about me, what makes me tick, understand whether I'm the right person that they want to find out more about. And then from that, they can, come work with me in any of our programs, our education programs, some of our accelerator programs where we work with companies for 12 months and we take them all the way through to that exit position. So we get really embedded. So we've got all these different things, but it comes off the back of first people, I suppose, building rapport, knowing, liking, trusting me from listening to me on the podcast.
Very smart. Very smart. Okay. Continue.
Okay. So that's the third one. The fourth one is predictability. And again, predictability, it's a huge one in the private equity market because if you have a predictable flow of the right clients, those right customers that you've designated through the proposition stage, if you've got them coming into your business with a way of measuring how they're coming in at every point, and importantly, they're driving recurring revenue. So recurring revenue could be a subscription or it could be long-term contracts. But again, it's certainty, it's predictability about how revenue is coming into your business because it's the revenue that's going to drive the profit, which is going to create the value. And if you haven't got that working, again, like a machine with a really, really thorough process and clarity, then usually how businesses make money is random. A client comes in, it's a referral over here or whatever. Those things are fine, but they're not in their own right good enough to get the most value you can from your business. You've got to create much more certainty and predictability through this process.
Beautiful. Say that wheel one more time. If they're not doing what, they're not getting this, which is not doing that.
Yeah. So basically, as I said, the whole intention here is a predictable flow of the right customers driving recurring revenue. And so what that basically means is, first and foremost, exactly, we talk about the funnel part of this, like people are coming into your world at the very top of this, and then they come all the way down to becoming, firstly, a customer. And if they come back and buy again, they're a client. That's my definition. But the whole idea is everything through that journey, from how they find you to how you follow up with them, to kind of how you first obviously engage through that process, different ways of offering value all the way through there. So you're offering value at every touch point. What it ends up doing is it also helps the conversion rates that you have of people coming into your world. So the thing I believe is this, Henry. So first and foremost, someone is a stranger to you. They don't know anything about you. Okay. So you need to have something that sits at the very, very top of the funnel for them first to actually find you and work out whether a relationship can be formed. As I said beforehand, the main way I do that is through the podcast, but there are other things as well. And then once you've got that happening, you've got to first then work out, well, then they probably want to find out more about you. Now, what's clever about having a media platform, be it a YouTube channel or something like a podcast, is as soon as someone first resonates with you, they understand that you're talking about what they need, that there's a sense that they could help you, they are quite often binge. They'll go and listen to lots of podcasts. They'll find out if you've got a book. And there's a formula that I learned from a guy called Daniel Priestley, which is called 7-11-4. So you need to have 7 hours, or someone has to have 7 hours with you across 11 different touch points in 4 different mediums. And if you can build that up, the chances of conversion, there's different ways of saying that, but the chances of conversion as they come to meet you and come through your process go up exponentially because that time is invested in building the relationship.
7-11-4. I like that. Yeah. I mean, you can't just put out one thing and think that it's going to hit. It's not.
The fifth one is process. And that is, as we spoke about at the beginning of this conversation, you've got to have processes that run across the various stages of your business. That's, again, we talked about a process for bringing in clients. Then you've got to have a process for how you serve and deliver to them. You've got to have a way of managing your finances, all the pieces. And again, lots of businesses, and this is the final thing, the transition from startup to scale up, is lots of founders, they love the creativity of, launching a product and sales and marketing, but they get a bit bored when it comes to process and systems and automation. What I say to lots of founders is you don't have to do this stuff. You just have to appreciate that this is the pathway to freedom. This is the pathway to scalability. It allows you to do more and be more and serve more people. And you've got to be able to have these things as foundational areas of your business if you're going to get to the 7, 8, 9 figures. There isn't one business out there that's got to those levels, or people who've created empires, without having very, very thorough, formulated, worked out, precise processes and systems that underpin everything that they do. Yeah.
Listen, you create a more well-oiled machine when you get those processes in place. I went years half-assing it and, not having the systems in place, and it bit me. I got bit, and that was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back that said, listen, if you want to take this business to the next level and you want it to be sustainable, I like that word you mentioned before, then you gotta invest. And so, processes are everything, man. Processes are everything.
And the other thing, I think one of the mistakes I see lots of businesses make is they particularly service-based businesses, they end up still trading time for money. And so it ends up becoming, the founder, the entrepreneur, maybe a small team. The only way they make money is to be able to put themselves out there, as I said, on hourly rates or daily rates. And you've got to have things like what I call productized ecosystems in there. So the actual product itself becomes a system, becomes a process, and that's what allows you to scale. You see that all the time through information businesses now, Henry, where, online programs and courses create scalability, whereas beforehand they might have been live trainings, which obviously are not as scalable as anything you can utilize with digital.
Right. Last but not least,
the important one. They're all important, but the last one is probably one of the really challenging ones for entrepreneurs, and that's people. The ability not just to find the right people who can come and work with you, and obviously there's the thing about employing high caliber capability, but this is where things like values and culture become critical. And one of the mistakes lots of people make, and I made this when I used to run businesses myself, is you forget about values driving behaviors and culture at the beginning. You kind of think, there's only 5 or 6 people here, so it doesn't matter. But then what you find is as you get to 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 people, if you haven't thought about those things, the DNA of the business, the stuff that makes us tick, then all of a sudden it comes to bite you. And there's examples of that in some of the more well-known sort of scale-ups like Uber, where they didn't get their culture right. And all of a sudden the value started to drop when things started to fall apart. So I often say here, don't necessarily hire people straight away. When you own scale up, bring in the right people who can kind of work with you and share the vision. And then eventually you can hire either those people or others. The mistake a lot of entrepreneurs make at the beginning is they get a bit of funding or investment. They go and hire the most expensive people they can get, realize they don't fit the culture. And then it's very expensive in terms of making a different decision, whether exiting those people or just slowing down the progress that the business is making.
Man, such a good point. I mean, I preach when people are asking me about, scaling and replacing themselves and building out a team. The first thing I tell them is if you want A players on your team, you got to hire based on values. If you can hire, right? It's so massive. You could get the guy or gal that's the rock star, but doesn't fit.
I did that. I mean, I came into a business actually it was a PE business that wasn't performing. And they had a very sort of decent 6-figure salary on the person from the big company down the road who was the sales superstar in the big company, and joined a business with 250 people. And literally in 18 months, he hadn't sold one thing. And he was on a 12-month notice period, which is a bizarre thing that happens here in the UK. And so the business eventually compromised paying him 6 months of salary. Remember, this is a 6-figure salary just to get him out. Now that took the business back, well and truly 18 months, if not longer, culturally. So it's a really important point.
Man, people, you got to work with the right people.
You got it.
Here's the good thing. I will tell all of you guys that are watching and listening that I had the opportunity to work with Nick and his company over the past, for about 5 months. And I got to tell you, the culture and the feel, the vibe that you get when you work with him and his team is unbelievable. I mean, you feel like you're working with family. You feel like you're working with people that really, truly care about you. And I think and the professionalism is by far some of the strongest I've ever experienced, because believe me, we've all hired the wrong fit here and there in our entrepreneurial career, right? So we know what we love and we know what we never want to hire again, right? And just working with you, Nick, and Rob and Eve over the past 5 months, it has been such an honor and so much fun, looking forward to those strategy calls and looking forward to, those meetups and just, vibing off of you guys. It's just been amazing. I told you this 1,000 times already, but you guys are doing amazing. And, I had to have you on the show. You guys are coming out with 2 brand new flagship programs that I want to spend the next couple of minutes talking about and getting some attention to them. And then we'll wrap up. So let's talk about the GAP program. Let's talk about the MVP program, who they're for and what they do.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for that. Thank you for those very nice words. And I think, there's one point I just want to make about that very quickly is, when things align, when you get the same values, be that with people you hire or clients, then it's fun. And I think sometimes, you've got to be brave enough sometimes to know that you're going to create really magic when those things align. A lot of businesses take on clients that aren't the right clients and all that sort of stuff. And I just want to make a point there that actually don't underestimate the value and the power when those things come together, because you get a better result, which is true. So a couple of things. First and foremost, the GAP program, which is the Growth Accelerator Partnership, that's designed for entrepreneurs who have got 6-figure businesses, 7-figure businesses, but they have the ambition to grow and scale those businesses over the next 24 months thereabouts. And they want to sell that business for what we call a capital event, to create wealth, to create freedom for themselves. And so we come in for 12 months and we work hand in hand with the founder and the leadership team, depending on the size of the business. And we help build the foundations around those 6 peaks of value creation. So it's a very, very hands-on, strategic and operational piece. And the reason we set that up like that, Henry, is what we found is there's lots of people out there offering online programs and courses on business growth. But a lot of the founders need more than that. They need someone who's been there and done that before, got the result that they're looking for, because it's not just about learning and then trying to put into action. You sometimes need to have that mentoring, that coaching, as well as the application to get the result. So the Growth Accelerator Partnership is for that entrepreneur, that founder, that team that's wanting to really scale that business quickly over that sort of 12 to 24 month period.
Beautiful.
And the Maximize Value Partnership is focused 100% on investors. venture capital, private equity. And this is where, they've got portfolios of businesses. Sometimes their portfolio companies in those investments are working well. Sometimes they're not working so well. And because I've spent years doing turnarounds and scaling up, really quick changes, really precise changes, which have just unlocked growth and value from those businesses, this is effectively a partnership that we make with the investor to be able to go in there and help the teams of those portfolio companies properly scale. And again, it's still underpinned by the 6 peaks of value creation, because those 6 characteristics that we went through during our conversation today, they are the bedrock. They are as I said, the foundations, which if you get them right and you get them working together, it is like a finely tuned engine. They sing along, everything works, and then you get a compounding effect. And I've seen businesses go from good to outstanding within that 12-month period just by working on these 6 peaks, these 6 areas with intention, focus, and discipline.
That is freaking awesome. So where can people get more information about both programs? And we got to send them to your podcast. Come on now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, listen to Scale Up Your Business. As I said, it's got everything. Lots of people go there and they do fine just listening to that and implementing what I say. I do 2 episodes a week. One of them's a short form one, and then I usually have an amazing interview that I do every Thursday. So go and have a look at that. It's on all the usual places: Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Scale Up Your Business, Nick Bradley. So with that, then we've got the Scale Up Your Business community on Facebook, which is a few thousand strong now. So that's a great vibe of people trying to help each other again on startup and scale up. But in terms of what we've just been talking about, so we've got our website, which is suyb.global. It's Scale Up Your Business, but it's suyb.global. And on there, you can learn more about the gap and the MVP, but you can also take the 6 peaks assessment. So we've got a free assessment on there, so you can go in there. Takes about 10 to 15 minutes, but you'll get a score at the end of that, and it will tell you specifically which of those peaks you're doing well at and which 1 or 2 you probably should be thinking about doing something with. And then it will give you the focus, the clarity for you to be able to start to drive growth again, particularly if you're not, maybe that you're not necessarily growing. You might be doing fine, but you may not be growing as fast as you want. And so the whole point of this is to give you the information, the insights to be able to do that. Awesome.
Nick, what a pleasure to have you on the show. And
I was looking forward to this.
Me too. Man. So guys, this is it right here. I mean, drill it down, pay attention to these 6 peaks, go listen to his podcast, go take the assessment and see where you fit, see how you rank. Because I bet you're not doing as good as you think you are.
It can be humbling for some people. It can be humbling. But trust me, there's always a way up. Yeah, there you have it. Nick Bradley from Scale Up Your Business. Guys, I hope you had an amazing time, as much as fun as I had having him here today and just learning and growing constantly. Again, here's a guy with tremendous experience that, I had the honor of working with over the past 5 months or so that, has really helped me sort of take my whole, game to the next level, which is, it's awesome. So you surround yourself with great people and great things happen. So hope you got value out of this one, guys. Stay tuned. We got more coming your way. Don't forget to write a quick little review or share this with a friend that you think it could help. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Love all of you. And I will see you on the next, and I should say, you'll hear me on the next episode real soon. Take care.
Hey everyone, this is Henry Kaminski Jr. again, and really quick, I want to invite you to a one-on-one consult with me right now if you're looking for the clarity and focus you need to build your brand. Over the past 13 years, I've served hundreds of entrepreneurs that have great products but struggled tremendously with articulating its value to their ideal customers. You didn't get into business to just change a few lives, did you? Your ideal clients need you. And when your brand has precision-crafted messaging coupled with beautifully thoughtful design that sounds, looks, and feels like you, they'll know you're the perfect match for them. If this is something you're struggling with, what I want you to do right now is pause this audio and go visit www.uniquedesigns with a Z at the end, not an S, .net, and book your one-on-one consult call with me. Remember, The quality of your brand will determine the quality of your clients. And the quality of your clients will determine the quality of your life.